All right. You want to start? You ready?
Sure. I'll swallow my coffee real quick.
Okay. It's fine with me. All right, here we go. Let's do that.
Yep. And
what?
And now for something special. The unit is self-contained with its own saddler, farrier, wheelwright, and so on.
and Ray's
It's a rigorous training dished on who know all there is to know about horses, and it brings results.
Ray
We
is
take you behind the
probably
scenes
one
now
of
to
the
show just some of the interesting
fastest
aspects of
being
this training.
listened to
Yes.
things I've got on the podcast.
Yes. Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, the best podcast to create sounder horses from the ground up. Mike Stein is a registered journeyman farrier with an APF1 accreditation. On this week's episode, guess what, everyone? Mike is back in town, and we'll give he'll talk about all the things that happened while he was out on the road at the Doc Redden event over there in Kentucky. And over to my far right side is Mike Stein. How are you?
I'm doing good, Travis. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. So you're back in town.
Back in town.
How did everything go?
It went good. Had a blast. Met a lot of people, some great minds in the business, and everybody was there to learn. Everybody was there to share ideas, and everybody was there to better horses.
Well, good. So speaking of better horses, so here on the property, I don't know when you pulled up this morning, you saw my lean-to over there has got a new roof on it. It's not really square, but it's a new roof on the lean-to. Did you see it over there? Yes, you did. You saw it.
I'll say you shake my head this way because it makes you feel better, right?
So it took me probably a good 3 days to do all the shingles, and the top of the roof of the lean-to was approximately 16 feet wide and about 36 feet long. So it took, a half a pallet of shingles and me up there hammering shingles and stuff.
Right.
In the process of doing that out in this heat, I had a cooler up there with ice and stuff. Now, the ice maker inside the house can't keep up with the ice and I don't have anywhere to buy ice around here. So we have a small little portable, little R2D2 ice maker out there in the garage. And I mean, it makes it quick. It makes 5 pounds of ice within, 10, 15 minutes. So all my garden hoses are connected to something, whether it be the horse trough, the automatic feeder, or automatic waterer, whether it's my sprinklers for the garden and all that stuff. So for me to fill up a pitcher of water, I'd have to physically get off the roof, come inside, go to the sink, the faucet, turn on the tap, sit there and wait because I'm on a well and it's slow water, and then turn the thing back on, then fill the ice maker back up because it's one of those where it's got a little reservoir down below and it pulls from that. And then wait for the ice to make and then continue the cycle over and over. So I got tired of going inside. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, the horses drink out of these troughs all the time.
Right.
And the troughs are completely clean. I mean, there might be a little bit of mold on the very, very bottom of the trough, but for the most part, my wife likes to keep those things clean.
Right. Probably cleaner than what you drink out of.
So I went out there and I took the pitcher and just off the top of, no grass or anything in it, just off the top of the horse trough and stuck it in the ice maker. I must have done like 3 or 4 batches, and then I put them in Ziploc bags and I throw them in the freezer.
Right.
For my cooler. Well, the ice maker in the house got stuck. Like, sometimes an ice cube won't kick out.
Right.
And so it wasn't making ice. So my dad, who's in the house all the time, he's constantly drinking iced tea. We ran out of ice in the house. So my dad, not knowing that I told my wife, don't use the ice in the freezer because it's from the horse trough. He comes out, grabs
some ice,
grabs him a Ziploc bag, a gallon Ziploc bag of ice, puts it in the reservoir in the house. And this morning I go to fill up my cup for the show today, and I see the ice cubes are different. They're the round little bullet shaped ones, not the long like half moon ones.
Right.
They're like a little round like a marshmallow.
Marshmallows, yeah.
And I I look at my cup and I go, Dad, where'd you get these ice cubes? And he goes, out of the freezer. I go, did we not tell you that the ice was from the horse trough? You would have thought I poisoned him with horse medication or something like that.
Well, he was using ice cubes in his drinks.
Yeah. Well, he put them in the.
If they're good enough for the horses, ought to be good enough for your dad.
That's what I said. I said they're fine. And he goes, well, that's probably why I can't sleep at night. And I'm like, why? You up counting sheep or something? Are you neighing in your sleep, or do you have a desire for hay or anything like?
Yeah, I wanted to go start grazing.
So he didn't freak out, but he's 76 years old, and any little thing that's out of his norm,
right?
He was like, so he's thinking in the back of his mind, I drank water out of a horse trough that was frozen in my iced tea. What's it going to do to me?
Never hurt me drinking out of a horse trough, and it has happened more than one time. When out working on the farm, you got a pretty clean trough. Of course, sitting down in it when it's really hot sometimes is good too.
He'll be all right, I think.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
All right, guys. Well, stick around. Mike's got a lot to get into with. Tell us again where you just came from.
I just came back from Versailles, Kentucky. I was at Doc Redden's clinic doing a week of intense podiatry, a lot of lectures, going through cases, working on cases that were brought in, and making a lot of new friends from around the world.
And we'll hear more about that here in just one sec. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. Yeah, so my dad kind of freaked out a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell
him that'll build his immune system, make it stronger.
I think I got one or two in my cup, too. I left them in there. I'm like, don't bothering me. Yeah, I had to fix some of your levels, but we're good. You ready?
Yeah.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He was the official farrier of the 2018 World Equestrian Games. And make sure you follow him on Facebook. And the way you do that is search for Equine Dynamics Mike Stein on Facebook. And you can see all the pictures from where he was out at Doc Redding's place over there in Kentucky and all the classes. And he's got a bunch of pictures of x-rays that he took, and you were out there with Dr. T, and unfortunately we were supposed to have Dr. T on the show today. She got called last minute. Tell me what happened at the last minute before she was able to be on the show.
She got called out on a colic because colics apparently don't take off for the 4th. Just like us.
So she's out there, and hopefully the horse that she's dealing with is okay, and she's doing okay as well. So hopefully we'll have her on next week's show, and she can give her insights as far as the class and clinic that she was out there in Kentucky. Now, Mike, you are back from Kentucky, and you now have a new license. What is the new thing, the little badge or something that I see that makes you an official something else now?
That is the official something else badge.
Let me see the badge so I can hold up in the camera. There we go.
There you go.
So here we go. And then don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. And you can see this by going over to YouTube, search for Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein.
That is
doesn't have your phone number on it, does it, or address or anything?
No.
All right.
Kentucky Horse Racing Commission. License for thoroughbred horse racing.
Now, what's the difference of having this or advantage of having this compared to a regular license that you would have?
Well, if I was asked to go to one of the tracks in Kentucky, I can work at one of the thoroughbred tracks. I can go into the backside and wherever I need to for what needs to be done. There has been some talk about me possibly going to the Breeders' Cup, which will be at Keeneland. So I was going ahead and get licensed in place. Now, in Kentucky, they do have standardbred racing. If you look at their commission, they have also for quarter horse racing. And if it is approved racing, there are plenty of people that have, like we have people that race here in North Carolina, but North Carolina is not a racing state as far as we don't have big tracks and we don't have racing commissions and all that sort of deal. So, the states that have licensing, when you're at the tracks, some of these price tags on these horses are in the range of, I really, really, really don't want to know.
No, too many zeros on the end of it.
Right. And there are numbers in front of the zeros that makes that really big. If it's just a straight line of zeros, it wouldn't matter.
No.
And you have to go through proof of knowledge and education and skills. When I licensed through Colonial, I was already on file because I had to be fingerprinted and the whole bit there. So they've got me on file with fingerprints, background checks, you name it.
Now, you said that with that license, you can work on all these horses on the Kentucky Derby circuit but not this certain type, the one that was pulling carts or something?
I don't. No. I'm not
sorry.
licensed for standard breds.
Right.
Standard breds are trotters or pacers. What this is for is like for the thoroughbreds.
Okay.
And for the flat track thoroughbreds. It's not for the quarter horses. Quarter horses do sprint races. I could probably, if wanted to, you could get other licensing besides just for the thoroughbreds.
So what would be the process of going from that to doing a standard license or whatever that equivalent of working on standard horses?
Well, the standard breds are trotters and pacers. It's a completely different style of shoeing, and it's different between the trotters and the pacers
Now,
from what you do on a thoroughbred flat horse.
now what personally know outside of what your licensing and stuff say, do you have the knowledge to work on standard horses?
That would fall closer to gated horse shoeing.
Okay.
And no, I've shoot a couple of standard breds that were off the trackers, but as far as what I would have to do with those horses to work on the track at speed, which is a completely different ball game, it would be best for me to get in with someone who is a good standard bred race shoer and work with them and learn the tricks, because it's a different bag of tricks from where I've been living.
I guess the answer to my question in my head would be, okay, you're a regular doctor, general practitioner. Can you do dentistry? That's they're both.
I can do dentistry. I got suppliers, chisels.
But they're both doctors, but they're two different aspects of the human body as to where you're doing the different aspects of the horse's body as well, as far as what they're using them for.
Your gated horse shoeing as opposed to your dressage shoeing or your event shoeing. The thoroughbred stuff, flat track thoroughbreds or walk, trot, canter horses or gallop horses, if you get into gated horse shoeing, you got horses that are pacers, horses that are trotters, horses that do a rack, and that would be closer to how the standard breds gait.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that makes any kind of weird sense.
I'm sure it makes sense to someone out there. Like I said, I'm not a horse person. I build stuff that gets broken.
Right. They're good at tearing stuff up. And if you were shoeing quarter horses, that'd be like working on a drag car.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Now, all right, guys, stick around. When we come back, Mike's going to dive into a lot more as far as the actual individual classes. You did some Venn diagrams. Not
Venn diagrams of Venns. Venneograms.
Venn diagram is one with the three circles.
Venneograms.
Yeah, I've got it all mixed up. Mike's going to decipher all this stuff and make us all unconfused when we come back. Stick around. You listen to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back.
All right.
No, you know what a Venn diagram is? I messed that up completely. A Venn diagram is you take in this circle, males. You take this circle, females, and then you put this circle in employed. And then if you move that circle up, this part of, it only catches this part of the circle and this part of the circle, meaning that only like 25% of are employed here. It's three circles and what they all have in common. That's a
right. Ready.
Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He was the 2017 American Eventing Championship Farrier. And make sure you follow him on Facebook. He's got a bunch of information up there. Who does all your Facebook posts? Do you do it or does the missus do it?
Yes, I do a little. Amy, not your wife.
Right. The office manager.
Excuse me. Amy does website. I'm trying to figure out who does. AC does some of my posting on Facebook.
And you've got a bunch of different Facebook posting up there of all the different classes that you took up there. There's a lot of pictures of Doc Redden. He's in a couple of those pictures. I recognize him. And you've got a lot of pictures of x-rays and what to look for. And you've got all these diagrams and stuff. So it's a really, really good follow. If you want to go over to Facebook and follow Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein, you can see all these different posting and stuff. Even if you don't listen to the podcast or even in between the podcast, you want to further your education as far as horse creating sounder horses, follow him as well, and there's a lot of information. He doesn't bombard you with a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of information up there just at the right level as far as posting.
I would encourage people to look up Doc Redden and look at what he's done over the last 50 years when it comes to feet. It's incredible. This guy has worked around the world. I think he said he has actually worked on horses in 32 countries. He has been a huge game changer when it comes to one of the biggest podiatry driving force behind looking at intensely at the podiatry end of the horse.
Now you're back from this class, and the name of the class, because I forget it every time. What's the name of the class again? I should know this. I should have written it down somewhere if I only had something
I
right
should
with.
have too, because I'm going to miss it. But it was a advanced equine podiatry course. Dr. Redden. My mic keeps falling.
Go ahead.
How's that?
Like I said, we had some problems here in the studio. A storm came through and blew everything around. There you go. You're good.
I'm messing you up now.
No, you're not.
Okay. The class.
Yes. Now, so what classes did you take, and what was the most interesting? You're like, oh, wow, I learned so much on that one.
This was new territory for T.
You're talking about Dr. T?
Dr. T.
All right, so Dr.
T.
All right.
Her last name is too hard to say.
Right.
Especially, if you're from the South.
Her actual name is, I'm going to mess this up too. It's Aubrey Turbeville. All right. Is that what she says to you? How does she say it when she says it to you?
She says, "Hi, I'm Dr. T."
Okay, well, there you go. So, and unfortunately, she got called in at the last moment. A horse that she was taking care of or is responsible for in her practice was going into colic. So
right.
she had to step away. We're going to have her on this week's show. Stay tuned. We'll have her on next week's show, and she can make up and tell her side of how she pronounces her name as well. Now, both of you two were in these classes.
Right.
What kind of classes were you taking, and give a description as far as what you learned?
We were looking hard at bone column alignment, palmar angle alignment, HL zones, which is horn to lamina, your lamina zone, looking at your lucid zones in the x-rays, looking at properly measuring sole depth and placement, looking at tendon pressure, looking at hoof wall distortions, looking at dealing with. There were several canker horses we worked on. There were a number of years ago when I went in there, it was all acute laminitic horses. A lot of these were more after the fact that we worked on. And we had a lot of other hoof and limb distortions to deal with as far as joint problems and and how you work around that with what we do on the ground.
Now, some people think that you're just sitting in a classroom and looking at slides and stuff, and there's a lecturer up on the front. You're actually looking at these horses that have these problems that are in this clinic that you were at.
We are shooting venograms. We are practicing on cadaver legs, tendon surgeries. We are building, fabricating, assorted things depending on what is going on with the horse. If it's a heavy derotation, you build that, what you need to for that. Frog pressure, mushroom shoes, hinge shoes, hospital plates. What do we need to do? How can we push the limits on what we can do on this horse? This is kind of a repeat for me, because like I told Dr. T, not that I always learn something. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I do. But the first time I went down that driveway into that clinic was 32 years ago. So I've got a pretty long history with Doc. And as far as these intense week-long classes, this is my third one. As far as he used to do a bunch of 3-day hands-on classes, I've 6 or 7 of them. Laminitis Symposium was a big talk that they did. They've shut it down. It ran for about 20 years. I made it to at least 8 of them. And then a number of other lectures that he had put on over the years.
So tell me some of the stuff that you learned, some of the refresher stuff, and some of you were just like going, oh my God, I had no idea. I was doing something wrong, or I need to correct the way I approach these items.
Well, the thing of it is I've worked in the field with Doc. I do referral work with him, and I've followed up with him. So always, every time I get into one of those, when we run into something strange, let's run this thing, and I get a whole lot of coaching. And so I am learning from those while we're working where he wants to go with it. I'm not going to say I always agree with him, but I've learned on these serious, bad, ugly cases, if Doc tells me to go over in the corner, stand on my head, that's what you do. Because, I've called him in where it's like, oh, this is getting out of control. But, the measurements, it's always good to repeat as far as what they're doing with the measurements and what they're figuring out from, like, what your HL zones look like, what your lamina zones look like, if you have lucid zones coming up in there, how big they are, what that means. It's always improving, always improving, always improving. 20 years ago, he wasn't talking about what was going on with that lucid zone because he was figuring things out. And this guy's been involved in, presenting a number of things to the AAP over the years. And, he is, always looking for better, always looking for better. So the way he does stuff has changed. But getting to be someone who works with him, we've worked up at NC State a couple times together, a number of other things. As he's making changes, and that's not the way I do that anymore because I figured out this, and this, and this. So I've gotten a lot of coaching along the way, but there are always something I have not seen this guy's done or new ways of doing it because, it's like right now we're having to look at, okay, we're having some problems because just with the impression material, all of a sudden the impression material we've been using as far as where he's been getting it said we hadn't had it for 3 months and it looks like it's going to be 8 months before they get one of the chemicals to start manufacturing again.
Just because of the supply chain issues that we're having issues with.
Yeah, there's another product that through another company that I usually get through my Farrier supplier. So I know the people at the company, the manufacturers and distributors. So I called them. Of course, now being like everything else in this country I think those were manufactured in Malaysia. But no, they were shipped 3 or 4 months ago. They're in a container and they haven't made dock yet, and we don't know when they're going to make dock. But they've been floating around out in the ocean for 4 months, which is just insane to me.
And hopefully they're still good after they cross the dock and everything.
Well, they're horseshoes.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking like a chemical or something like that.
Well, these are horseshoes, so they're not going anywhere.
Right.
They if you get if it's still horseshoe, if it gets a little bit of rust on it, you throw it in the forge, that heat knocks the rust off. But there's something else to do what we were doing with that material and get our distances right. And if I've got a horse that has absolutely no sole depth that's rotated, we need to reposition the whole bone column. And I need to build 20 millimeters down from there to what I'm putting on the foot, which is a great place to be. It's where you want to be in some of these situations. I use the impression material in there. So what are we going to use in there instead? Because we're going to have to figure something out if we can't get this stuff, because that can become a life and death thing with these horses. If you've got a horse that has penetrated or something like that, and the horse is intact, the vascular material, blood flow is intact enough to be able to do something with this horse, because their horses put down, they have wonderful blood flow because they're painful and people don't know what to do with it. And that's where these venigrams are so important. On the other end, and here not so off in past history, I had a horse that we got him into the ultimate boots that Doc Redden loves. And of course, a lot of design and redesigning. They're redesigning them again because he's got a better system than what he had. This is the one now is about the 4th or 5th gen of it. But to get the mechanics we want, sometimes we've been taking stuff apart, building stuff on the bottom of these boots. But I like to go to that as a first aid thing. So he's building a totally different boot that it gives you more variety of what you can do without just fabricating something out of a box. And earlier than that, when you go back 30 years ago, for some of these things, it's like I was in the clinic one time. He says, if you had a stack of wood, you could build that out of plywood or something if you're thinking to get on a horse temporarily to do something. And you can put any mechanics in that you want. So I did some with plywood. People, oh my God, where are you putting that on my horse? Horse walked off. We got the horse happy. But when these things were not pre-made, and honestly, I think that's part of what's going wrong with the business as a whole. Used to be, at one time, if you got real creative, you were kind of a genius. Now there's so many things made out there, and there's so many things come to market. A lot of these poly shoes, they come to market 4 or 5 years. This is going to be the big thing that's going to fix everything, and most of them are gone. And you know, the other part of people, well, why don't you get into it? Well, most times if I call one of these poly shoe companies, you have to buy our $1,500 Farrier package. I'll put 2 pairs on, and you get this box of stuff that eventually goes to landfill. So it's like, if you want to go that route, you buy the materials. I'll put it together and put it on. If not, let me build something, because I'm still one of those that I will do a lot of fabricating myself. But if it doesn't come pre-made, we don't want it on our horse. I have to have a semi truck to have everything that you could put on a horse. And I've got thousands and thousands of dollars in materials out there, and what I got that I know I'll use. I build it.
I know you got a huge container on the back of that truck that's just loaded. I've seen you move it around.
Right. The equipment and everything else. I mean, there's, you know, I can weld, I can cut, I can drill, I can tap, I can whatever. But, you know, if what comes in the box won't do it, we build it. We make it happen. And I'm afraid that with some of that, let's just don't develop the skills to do these other things. And what happens in the long haul? What happens when you're out there in a pinch and you can't do it without coming out of the box? You said, well, that can't be done. Horse is just in trouble. I'm sorry. So that's kind of where I am with that. And that was way off track. What were we talking about?
Well, we're going to come back and reset and talk about more of the classes that Mike Stein was taking over there in Kentucky with Doc Redden. Stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. We'll get him back on track.
It was a good rant anyway.
All right, you ready?
Have a second.
Yeah.
My beautiful pink coffee cup. All righty.
Ready? Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He is now what's your license? The new license that you say that you got over there?
This is Kentucky Horse Racing Commission Thoroughbred Farrier.
Officially now.
Officially.
Well, very good. And if you'd like to see more of Mike Stein, you go over to YouTube, search for Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. You got a whole bunch of pictures up there, or I'm sorry, not pictures, videos of Ray Morris. You've been posting those around if you ever want to learn and basically put your hands on a horse. Ray Morris was a blind gentleman from Australia, from New Zealand.
Don't call him that.
Sorry.
He'll just give you some wild story and run you down the road because he can. Or could.
If you want to learn how to put your hands on the horse and learn how to massage a horse and feel the tendons and stuff like that, there's 4 short 12-minute videos. You can watch those, and you can learn a little bit more about your horse as well. And over on my far right side is Mike Stein.
Good morning, Travis.
So, when I was in school, there was classes that I loved to take. Like, I couldn't wait to get to algebra class, which is weird. A lot of people don't like math. I loved algebra.
Right.
I also liked drama class. As you can see, it kind of led to this.
I can see you in drama.
This is where it led me today. And there were some classes I just could not stand. Not because of the class itself. It's because I had just a horrible teacher. The teacher was not into it. Usually my history classes, the teachers are like, and World War II happened, and blah, 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 and they're just going through the motions. When you have a real passionate teacher like you have in Doc Redden, what are some of the classes that you were like going, I can't wait to take that class or take that part of the clinic? And what is the ones that you're just like, I cannot stand that part just because it doesn't interest me, or it just makes me uncomfortable doing it? What are your top class, top clinic, and your bottom one?
Well, as far as the ones I did with Doc,
no, it doesn't matter. Throughout the whole thing, you're like going, I don't want to take this one. This is going to be boring.
Throughout the whole career?
No, just this past week.
This past week?
Yeah.
Unless
you just gobbled it all up, you're just one of those gung-ho farriers, which I could see. Yeah.
I'm pretty gung-ho when it comes to this. And, I did a clinic not too long ago with Stephen O'Grady and... Lord, I'm great with names. Andy Carter from UGA, and I hope I got his last name right. But anyway, they presented some different outlooks on physiology of the foot from what Dr. Redden did. And, you know, Doc's got certain areas he really concentrates on. You know, and there are some different views on mechanics. So when I'm working on performance horses as opposed to an acute situation, the ball game is different. And since I do so many performance horses and all, you know, there's always been this thing that, you know, therapeutic farriers probably don't do well on performance horses. Performance farriers sometimes don't do that well in therapeutics. So I'm kind of back and forth on both sides of the line there. And I've talked to guys that have been real into this, that have done some wonderful things as a farrier. And I was talking to a friend of mine. He says, I can't do performance horses. I just do therapeutics. He says, I don't understand how you do it.
Just because he doesn't like it or doesn't understand it, or just that's not his cup of tea?
There's some, it's one thing dealing with pressures. Just like the first time I shoot race horses, I thought I knew how to shoot a horse till I did that. And I found out I don't understand some things. If I went to the standard bred track, I'd find out real quick there's a whole lot I didn't understand. Where, you know, the work with the FEI horses, you know, going all way back to 2008 when I did the eval for the endurance team, and then getting into the eventers, you talk about somebody putting pressure on feet. You know, it's one thing dealing with the therapeutic situation, getting a horse through that, and the rehab, which I've done a lot of years in that. And then you've got a horse that you got to get good, clean movement patterns. We've got to take care of that foot as best we can. We've got to pay attention to tendons and ligaments. You got to pay attention to how the pelvis is moving. You got to pay attention to how the shoulder is moving. And, you know, for the dressage horses in particular, I got to pay attention to what the back's doing. And let's about say, despite the rider.
Right.
And can I do something mechanically on the ground that can help that horse get his body into that position where, you know, with therapeutic shoeing, we're not looking at the rider so much. We're looking at more extremes, moving pressure, changing pressure to get through a time period with a situation. Then we start backing her back down to find a happy spot for the horse, and hopefully they can go back to their competition. And at that point, we got to change gears because, you know, a lot of my heavy competition horses, they'll go through a letdown period. We've got some stress problems. We've got this, got that, you know, going on. And coming into competition, okay, I've got a compression problem. I need to go boom, 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 boom to start thinking therapeutic. But can I do this? I've got an event a week out, and that horse go from here to here, because every time I do that, it's going to cause the horse to use the muscle structure in a different way, and they've got to go compete. So sometimes I've got to go a little bit to relieve the pressure as much as I can without throwing that horse to a place where all of a sudden I'm using my body different enough that I'm coming up sore or whatever it may be, and I can't compete at that level because sometimes I got a week in there, and sometimes I've got more. And it's okay. We're coming to the end of the season, and part of the problem with a lot of horses these days is they got one or two horses instead of a dozen. And that horse is go, go, go year round. But I'm going to tell you, we're dealing with these upper level competitive horses that I've dealt with. There are going to be a number of horses standing there, and there's going to be times when those horses, we back them down and we start looking at that horse more in a rehab mode and do what we need to do to straighten things out. Then we start building them back into work, and they do a run, and then we kind of ease back into rehab mode during their letdown time. And, you know, I've heard people, well, these track horses, you can't, after they trash them on the track. Well, sure, some of them do. But there's a few horses out there that have done well that were ex-track horses. I've got one, he's an old-timer out in the field right now, and I get the honor of trimming the old-timer's foot. So it was an old gray horse. Well, he was in the, you know, he was a track horse till he was about 5. He went on, he did the Olympics, he's done Pan Am, he's been to Burley, he's been to badminton, he's been He's been there. He's done it.
Always as a track horse, though.
No. That was his second career after a track horse.
Okay. I was going to say, is it common for a race horse or something, or a track horse, go into hunter jumper or go into eventing or something like that? Is that a common?
It's not that uncommon. No, it is not. And then I've got old Mr. P, I call him, because we had last couple of years, I got called in with back end problems. We kind of eased off, didn't know what he was going to end up doing. We got him happier, and at 19 years old, and he's had some damage. He was an Extrack horse. He ran, had a full racing career. And, you know, at 19 years old, he's out there eventing. He's not competed at the level that he was. He in 016, he was in running for an Olympic team spot. You know, so there are plenty of these horses that can go out and go for long periods, come off the track if they're managed right, if we don't destroy some. Now, with some of the rules changes, they're trying to make that situation better, and I hope they do. But there's also some things I got to look at with the rule changes. In certain conditions, is that going to be workable for the horse or not? And are we going to end up possibly having some problems because we can't hear when we used to be able to, if that makes any whatever.
You're banging on everything over there. Like,
I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be beating on because now you have to edit.
You're a regular Neil Peart over there.
Right, yeah, I'm playing the drums. But, you know, dealing with problems when they are mild and subtle, we can get through a lot of stuff and get a lot of these guys back out there working. If on the other end, you know, and this is a problem with lower level horses, the people that have the experience to go to the top, they know because they've learned the hard way that sometimes we got to readjust. And sometimes we got to give that horse a letdown period. And sometimes, because it takes, you know, to build a top level horse takes years, and you don't want to break them. And, you know, if you go out there, you're competing, and, oh, no, we can't do that because I'm competing. We can't do that because I'm competing. Well, no, we don't want to do that because I know my horse doesn't have a problem. Also, one day it goes kaboom. And we've blown something out big, and we cannot get that horse put together enough to go out and compete. And like you broke, and then there's the farrier, you broke my horse. Look what you did to my horse, or the trainer, or whoever else is involved. And you were not allowed to do what needed to be done when it was appropriate.
All right,
That's
guys.
something we fight all the time.
All right, guys, stick around. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show here in just one more segment, and we'll let you get back to enjoying your rest of your 4th of July. By the way, it's 4th of July. Totally forgot that today was 4th of July. We'll let you get back to enjoying the rest of your day. You stick around. You're listening to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. He'll be right back. Yeah, I forgot it's 4th of July weekend. You doing anything special?
I am going to go work on a horse the vet looked at. Then I'm going to come back over here and do your wife's horses.
Oh, that's right. She said about 3 o'clock or something like that. That'll be good.
And then we're going to set off a huge firework display. I'm probably going to go home and go to sleep.
Yeah. You ready? Welcome back to Equine Dynamics with Mike Stein. If you'd like to ask Mike Stein a question, the way you do that, it's very easy to do. Go over to equinedynamics.com. At the top of the page says contacts. Fill out that little form there and make sure you put podcast in the subject line. And if we read your question on the air, we will send you out a magnet and sticker. So make sure you put a return address on there as well. And over to my far right hand side is Mike Stein.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I get. Just a yep.
All I get. Yep. I'm here.
So what did we learn today, Mike? Unfortunately, we were going to have Aubrey Turberville, Dr. T, on the show.
Dr. T.
She got called away last second for a horse that was colicking, so she will be on next week's show. So make sure
that's the plan. I haven't told her that. We'll see what she tells us.
Make sure you stick around for that, or stay tuned for that as well. And Mike Stein, you just came back from the Doc Redding's podiatry. Something, take it away. What did you come back from?
His advanced podiatry clinic.
So what was your favorite class and what was your least favorite class there?
I like getting into the hands-on. When you're building and fabricating and looking at horses and applying everything.
What's your least favorite class? Like theory classes are kind of.
It's always good to repeat theory. Sometimes on some of what they've decided on the anatomy of the hoof when they shoot X-rays. I'm still learning what some of the new thoughts have come, because the whole thing of looking at the Lucid Zone in there, that's something that's relatively new. I think they're still deciding how to measure that and what the measurements mean, and it's going to vary some between a smaller hoof and a Clydesdale as far as how what the sizing means. At what point is it a huge problem or not a problem?
Now, you brought up that some of the material is not being readily available to you. What did you guys as a group come up with as far as substitution, or how should you approach the lack of materials that you're having to use?
Well, there are some other products we can use. There are a few other impression materials, but the problem is that's starting to run short too. The other end of the impression material is how dense it is when it sets up, because all of them are a little bit different density. So which ones can we use and be okay? Is that too much pressure, not enough support, or what it may be, and how do we compensate for that if it's a problem? The contrast for the venograms. My wife works in medical, and guess what? They're having a hard time getting it too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And
you also just recently achieved another level of certification. Which is it's actual true word. I just made it up.
Yeah, probably in your dictionary too, isn't it?
Yes. And what is it again, one more time? And what does it allow you to do, and what does it not allow you to do?
This is Kentucky Horse Racing Commission licensing for thoroughbreds, for thoroughbred racing.
Now, does that allow you to do all throughout the United States, or just Kentucky, or the racing states?
The racing states, you license state by state.
Okay.
Now, I can take this and go to another state, and it eliminates a lot of what you got to do as far as all your application. You still have to fill out an application, but
it's kind of like when you go from one state to another. You get a driver's license in Florida. All I got to do is take the eye exam or whatever up here in North Carolina to transfer.
Right. It wouldn't be like going and first time you got your CDL.
Right.
Because the first time you get licensed, and it depends on the state on that also, because some of the states at this point have a little different standard. And do you have to repeat the whole CDL test and find out that our CDL test is a shade different than the last state's CDL test?
And what else you got before we let you go?
I got to go work on some horses, and
you're going to work on my horse today too, right?
We're going to work on your horse today, and we're going to take a look at. I know that one of the first horses that I'm working on has come up positive for some navicular issues. And we're going to have to address the mechanics of that and get that horse back doing its job.
So you got a full day ahead of you.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we appreciate each and every one of you for downloading us. Make sure you follow Mike Stein over there on Facebook. That's Mike Stein, Equine Dynamics, and you can see all the different pictures and videos of the classes that he took out there in Kentucky at the Doc Redden show. And make sure you follow him on YouTube as well. He's got a bunch of videos up there, and don't forget, for every podcast we do, we have a matching video as well. You can see me waving to Mike, Mike waving to me. Make sure you follow him as well over there.
Got me a pretty pink nanner.
I didn't want to bring up the pink hat, but it looks very good on you, Mike.
Well, it goes with my pink apron, and I'm picking up a new pink hoof stand. I look good.
And your boyish good looks.
Yes, and my pink coffee cup. You got to have pink coffee cups.
Real men wear pink. All right, guys, we're going to let you get back to what you got to do. We'd like to thank you for listening to Equine Dynamics. Stick around. Sorry, let me redo that again. We're going to let you get back to enjoying the rest of your day. My name is Travis Holmes, saying see you next week.
Hi, Lucky. Good night, Ned.
There you go.
Thank you.
Good night, Ned.